All right, a very good morning to you. It is 8 a.m. and it is time for your world. And I know today is a very, very big day. All of us are glued to see, especially the impeachment trial, as far as the deputy president is concerned. That is one regarding Gachagua. And as NTV, we're giving you wall-to-wall coverage for the same. But even before we head to the courts to hear what the judges have to say, we also have to talk about a very important conversation that touches every single person, every single one of us, and this is as far as food is concerned, because today, that is on the 16th day of October, is World Food Day. And as we all know, that food is the third most basic human need after air and water. Everyone should have the right to adequate food. And yet today, over 2.8 billion people, and this is according to Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, suffer from hunger and are unable to afford healthy diets. So more vulnerable people are often forced to rely on staple foods or less expensive foods that can be unhealthy, while others suffer from the unavailability of fresh or varied foods, lack the information they need to choose a healthy diet, or simply opt for convenience. So then how do we change this, right? And following this year's theme, and this is as far as right to foods, not food, right to foods for a better life and a better future. So then how do we make sure that this is possible for every single person? That is the conversation that we're driving this morning, and my guests are already here. It's an all-female panel this morning, and right from my left, we have Elizabeth Yegon, who's the head gender unit, State Department of Agriculture. Good to have you this morning. Thank you so much for your time. We also have Mary Njeri Waweru, who's the agri-nutritionalist. Hey, State Department of Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development. Good to have you this morning. Thank you so much for your time. And we also have Milka Wahu Kuria, who's the founder and executive director, AMCA Africa Justice Initiative. Good to have you as well this morning. You all look lovely. And like I said, this conversation touches every single, person. But Mary, allow me to start with you. This year's theme, right to foods for a better life and a better future. Can we first of all just talk about the significance of this day, and then we'll delve deeper into, the theme of the day.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be here with you. Like you have rightly said, the right to food is a basic right for all of us. And with the theme this year, we're looking at how then do we make sure that everybody has this food, and not just food, nutritious food, diversified food, and we are looking at how then do we make sure that this food is available sustainably throughout the year, not just when they are harvesting, and make sure that they are having it when they need it and at the right quantities. And we're looking at how affordable is this food also, because sometimes food may be there in the market, in the villages, but the affordability becomes an issue. So how do we make all this come together so that every one of us then becomes food secure, as it's in our constitution also. The right to food is in our constitution. So today we are celebrating that and looking at where we have come from, where we are faltering, and where we need to go so that we can have a better life and better future for all of us as a country. And it's a worldwide celebration. But in Kenya now, we will be looking at where are we as a country.
Yeah, and that is one of the questions I was going to ask, that where are we? And most of the time, when we talk about food, we just think food, okay? And food not in terms of its nutritional value and aspect and what we need to get out of food, but food, whatever it is that is on the table, whatever it is that is available, whatever it is that we can get and that we can afford. And sometimes it's not even the case for so many people, because there are some who don't even have that, whatever it is that they can afford on the table, whether it's nutritious or not, they can't afford that. So my question is, where are we? Why is this the case for so many people? There's some who have a lot, plenty, and there's some who completely do not have anything. Do you want to take that? Or you want to take that? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, we acknowledge that we have those disparities, even within the different regions in our country. Sometimes when we have drought in other areas have excess food. And that is just because we have the different regions have different climatic conditions, different agricultural potential, and they also engage in different value chains, either crops or livestock. But to say that that's why as government we try to create an enabling environment to make sure that every region is producing according to its potential. And then when we look at the issue of marketing and infrastructure, then the food can be distributed in the different regions. But we acknowledge that sometimes we have those disparities even within the cities.
Yeah.
We have the urban poor who may not be having access to foods. And that's why we encourage even household food production.
All right.
Especially in the ministry, we have been encouraging families to have kitchen gardens, especially so that you can be able to have a fresh supply of vegetables throughout the year. And it is fresh, it's affordable. And you see, if you calculate, it saves you a lot of money every day.
Yeah.
If you are able to just get the vegetables, the onions, and those, so that maybe if you are not producing the others, you can be able to source from the market.
Okay.
So that's one major intervention we have been encouraging as a ministry.
A bit of an issue for so many people? Because I know there's some people who say, but me, I do not have a balcony.
Yeah.
Or others clearly where they live, say for example, in like, in slum areas where it's like, and even, not even in slum areas alone.
Yeah.
Planning, I think, for the cities and where apartments are is like literally congested, but there's no space to even have that, like a kitchen garden. So this might not be a reality for so many people, don't you think?
You're right. But we along with the kitchen garden technologies, we have those ones which are appropriate for the urban spaces.
Okay,
you can have container gardens. You can do microgreens at your window, just a little space within your kitchen. So we have all these appropriate technologies which you can be able to adopt to be able to produce the vegetables even in a very small space.
I see that.
Yes.
I see that.
Yeah.
All right. Mary, we'll come back to you to understand then where are we as a country, because it's true. Clearly there are disparities, even right here in the country where someone would argue and say, but we have the best weather to produce the best food. We have almost everything that we need, but again, at the same time, not everybody has access to foods, right? And we're really emphasizing on the foods, which we'll come back to in a sec to really understand why we're talking about foods. Milka, let's speak to you. Most of the time when women play a very big role. Right? And in as much as sometimes we try to run away and say, equality, empowerment, and women is not, the role is not just in the kitchen and whatnot, but the bigger percentage is the women carry that big load to ensure that their families are fed and the family is healthy, right? But where are we? Can we first of all just understand how important women are in today's conversation as far as foods is concerned?
Thank you very much. Yes, I think it's a very important discussion, and because it points to the importance of food, the ability to have a sustainable food that can sustain us, and safeguard our own ability to produce our own food. And when it comes to issues of women and men, how we are able to participate in production of food. Statistics, actually government statistics shows that majority of the people doing subsistence farming is women.
Women, okay.
So we have 55 to 60% of these people doing agriculture being women.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to agriculture that is commercial, now agribusiness, you find more men in that space than women.
Okay.
But then, and then there is also a smaller percentage of the youth participating in agriculture, which is also a problem in itself, that we are not having enough youths engaging in agriculture.
It's not clean, it's dirty.
Yes, because of the way agriculture has been sold to us. It is, it's something to be punished, it's like a punishment, like if I was to think of how we used to go to the shamba, I don't want to go to the shamba if that's the kind of agriculture that it's to be done. But there are better ways of doing agriculture, and I think it's very important that youth engage with this. However, there are also reasons why we're not making quite the kind of headway we want to make in terms of sustainability of this agriculture, especially when the majority of women are the ones producing the food that we are eating at home. Because under what circumstances are they producing this food? One of them is the access to that resource, the level of access. To produce that food, there is need for land. How many women own land in their own right in this country? The statistics are not very, very clear. We need that really fully established. But when you look at the different statistics produced from the government agencies, it could be around less than 10 to around 13 to less. We are not very sure. But to be average, let's say less than 15% of all women own land in their own right. They are registered owner of this land. Now, if you're not the registered owner of this land, that means every time you're using that land, then there is some way that your usage can be interfered with. So if you are my mother using our land, and there's a dispute between you and my father, and then you don't use that land. Maybe you leave the home, or he says, this is my home. You know, we have to know this is our African culture and all this. So that becomes quite a problem. Because women are not, and when you don't have the land, the resource, then also means you don't have capacity to access finances, because you need that resource to access finances and prove that you're doing this agriculture. So that is quite a bigger problem that we have not been really looking at. And it's very important if we are to have a food sustainability.
I think we have government representatives here, so maybe they might speak you know, on this. But before that, plus so many other gaps that exist, which again we'll come back to you, Milka, to talk about, and even any of you can also contribute to some of those gaps. But Mary, so then where are we? How are we doing as a country? I know we faced one of the biggest and hardest, you know, drought season right here in the country, but just point to that picture, you know, to us. Where are we? How are we doing as far as food security in the country is concerned?
Okay, thank you. When you look at the country, we have the triple burden of malnutrition as a country. And when we talk of the triple burden, we are looking at the undernutrition and also overnutrition, and you're also having the micronutrient deficiencies. So if you look at the undernutrition, stunting, we are at 18%. And when you talk of that, we are looking at children under 2 years of age who are stunted. And we have looked at the data and how this usually affects the child, because the first 1,000 days are the most important ones. Once you miss out on that, and the child is stunted, that means for the rest of their life they will not reach to their potential. And if you look at the potential for them to be able to contribute even to the other economic factors, education, production, it remains limited. So with 18% of children stunted, then that's a big issue for us as a country. And government has put in measures that make sure that no child is stunted, because the right of the child is also protected in our constitution, and the right to food is also part of that. So when you look at now how some of the interventions that are being made, and you look also at the policies that the government has put in place, they're there to really ensure that the child gets the food they require at the time they require. And when I realized when you saying the agri-nutrition. And when it comes now to agri-nutrition, we are saying, how do we make our agriculture then responsive to nutrition? Because when you talk of nutrition, you really have to start with the food. So how do we make our agriculture more nutrition sensitive?
Than just producing food.
Than just being economic. For a long time, we have been looking at agriculture from an economic lens, but now we're asking ourselves, how do we make agriculture more nutrition sensitive? And when you're talking of the foods, we are looking at the diversity of these foods. So with that now, we look at how do we bring in and our agriculture make economic sense and also makes nutritional sense for everybody.
Yeah.
How do we bring these two together?
Yeah. And I want to just throw it to you because again, it's true what you're saying, foods, right? Like I said, today we'll be using that term a lot.
Yes,
You know, maybe someone is watching us and thinking it's food. No, foods, right? And when we talk about that, we mentioned it stands for diversity, nutrition, affordability, accessibility, and safety, which you all, you know, you alluded to.
Yes.
So then how do we do that? Because I know Milka mentioned the role that women play and the gaps that are there, which again, we'll still go back and explore more gaps. Because for a very long time, like Mary said, we've been focusing on the economic aspect of the same, but neglecting the nutritional aspect of the same. So where exactly does that mean? And when we say nutritional, right?
Yeah.
What exactly does that stand for? Because we use fertilizers, you know, ammonia and all those things, but we tend to be a little bit, not a little bit, to be dangerous, you know, later on, right? So what exactly, just make it clear for people to understand. Maybe there are farmers who are watching us this morning and thinking, okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So when we are talking about agri-nutrition, as Jerry has alluded, we are talking about making our agriculture nutrition sensitive.
Okay.
So nutrition sensitive agriculture means that we are not just producing food for the sake of it or just producing food for the market, but we are also encouraging that farmer that as you produce this food, think about the nutritional needs of your household. Yeah, so that you're not just producing food for the market. You know, sometimes farmers can produce food and sell everything, and then they leave the home with nothing.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, I'll give an example, sometimes farmers can be doing poultry, then they sell the eggs to buy something like a mandazi, something like that.
Yeah.
So when we are talking about nutrition sensitive, is about creating our awareness among the farmers and our communities at large, that they need to think about the nutrition value of these foods. Yeah, and as we know, we have those 10 food groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we encourage the family to at least every individual to consume about 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to just mention the important 5, or you can
the
do 10, but the important 5? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we have the, of course, from the 10, because out of the 10, we have the cereals, we have eggs, that's another group.
Yeah.
We have the dairy, that's another group. We have the pulses. Yeah, the pulses. That's where we have the beans, the dengus, the lentils. Yeah, and then we have the green leafy vegetables. Very important. And that's what they can be able to do in their kitchen gardens. Because the green leafy vegetables are very important, to be able to give us iron and immunity. Then we have what we call the other vegetables. All the other vegetables, the onions and everything falls in that group. Then we have the other group of the fruits. Yeah, we have the vitamin A rich. And this, most of them are yellow, mango, pawpaw, yeah? And then in there we also have the vegetables which give us vitamin A, like carrots. Very important, because every mother will say that when you're taking your children to the clinic, some of them have to be given the vitamin A supplements. That tells you the importance of that vitamin in your for our bodies. So it's very important if we can be able to produce these foods and consume these foods. And while at it, in this group of vitamin A rich foods, we have the pumpkin. Yeah, the pumpkin is like a wonder food. You know, the leaves fall in the green leafy vegetables. Yeah, the pumpkin itself is vitamin A rich. Yeah, and then the seeds of the pumpkin. Most people throw away the seeds, yet the seeds have a very important mineral, the zinc. And you find, as my colleague has talked about, the micronutrient deficiency. If you look at the data, we have zinc is one of the minerals that we are lacking across the population. So we are encouraging our communities to be aware
Okay.
of these nutrients in these different foods.
All right.
Yeah, and to produce them and to also consume them.
I see that.
Yeah, so I've just mentioned, I think, a few of the
yeah.
groups. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I'm happy that you've mentioned that, because majority of the times, especially when you were in school, what else? Carbohydrates, vitamins, proteins,
Yes.
and fats. Fats, you we learned later on in life, but the basic three is what we were really focused on. But really, it goes beyond just the three, because
Yes.
we need these nutrients and micronutrients,
Yes.
not only for the child's development, but our overall well-being.
Yeah.
As a country. So then, Milka, understanding that and the role that then women play in not just producing and processing of those foods, but also making decisions in the households of what we're going to take and what we're going to consume, and all those things. So with that understanding, can we talk about then the impact of proper nutrition and the decision that lies with the women, and maybe an availability of the same? Then what does that do to, say, a family?
Okay, yeah. You see, the women and the people who are taking care of households, for them to make that decision, they make decision from what they have.
Yeah.
So information that you already have, like the information my friend Elizabeth is disseminating right now, but there is also that which is supposed to be done by the government, because the government bears the overall responsibility to ensure that us as a population get nutritious food and have access to food. So looking at food, as we are talking about right to food, we can look at it from two dimensions, food safety and food security.
Yes.
Coming to food safety, it's where we are talking about what kind of food, what is the safety of this food. Now, there is a problem, there is a challenge as to, and this is a conversation that has been happening, and research is everywhere, that a lot of the farm inputs that farmers are using to grow food is not safe.
Yeah.
So who is supposed to protect us from that? Because most of the farmers don't know this. Most of the farmers want a very beautiful, a very good onion. And when we go to the market, you choose the best looking tomato, not knowing what is inside that tomato.
True.
So you, the consumer, the one who doesn't farm, you buy from the market, and the one who is even farming, are consuming this, which is not safe. So most of these pesticides, fungicides, and others actually have been banned in other countries where they are actually produced. They are produced elsewhere where they don't use them, but they bring them here. Who is supposed to say no to them coming here? Because the farmer won't know. The farmer will continue using, for instance, Roundup, despite the controversies that are going on around this particular pesticide. And so the safety becomes a very questionable issue. So it's, for us, it's a call to government to protect us from ourselves, because we do not know this information, and it's the responsibility of government to ensure that whatever comes into the country as something for food input is safe. The other thing is what we are talking about, food security. Again, coming to the question of women and also youth access to resources to be able to do this. If it's the majority of the women who are producing subsistence food for eating, and they are not able to access resource to do that sustainably, are not able to do that, then the security of that food is also affected. There may be food today, and there will be no food tomorrow for this particular family, because this lady was farming here, and this also comes into issues like contract farming and leasing of land. So some people are leasing land to do farming for home consumption and for commercial purposes. Now, they may not understand how to do effective leasehold, legally speaking. Dispute arise, and the land is taken away
from them. And we'll come back then to talk about some of these things like
Yes.
policies, again, what you're saying, because you're
Yes.
raising a very important point. And this is not just focusing on safety, security rather, but also focusing on the safety of our foods. And Elizabeth, I'm just going to throw it to you when we come back from the break in terms of then policies and regulations, because we had a fertilizer, scandal just recently. So let's take a break. And then when we come back, we'd also want to understand, like you said, youth and engagement, policy reforms, which, where are we and what needs to be done, even as we celebrate this day. So all that is coming up after the break. Stay with us. The show is your world. There's so much to discuss, rather, on the other side of the break.
Try the new Dunked All-Star Box for only 8.90 Kenyan shillings. Hope you're ready for the new star of the show. KFC, it's finger-licking good while stocks last.
Karibuni! Hii ndio base ya the best local entertainment.
Sitakubali ukalie kiti cha umiliki katika kampuni ya mume wangu.
Tell me where my money is, and I'll make this quick and painless.
You don't know what they do to girls like you.
I think it's a bit unfair.
Nakujua vizuri sana. Najua mdosi wangu vizuri sana. Hauwezi akakuandika kazi.
Please don't ask or remind Nikolai about the wedding. We don't want him stressed.
Let me be clear to you, Kelly. No matter how you look or what dress you wear, no matter...
All right, welcome back. The show is Your World, and it is, 37 minutes past the hour. Of course, the conversation still continues off air, and it's all about a very important conversation that we're having this morning as far as World Food Day is concerned. And we're focusing on the different, facets, and not just security, which, is something that we really focus on most of the time, but we're also looking at the safety aspect of the same, because the theme for 2024 is right to foods. Okay, for a better life and a better future. And like we said, when we're talking about foods, all right, it goes beyond just whatever is available on the table. It stands for diversity, nutrition, affordability, accessibility, and safety aspect of the same. And my panel is still here with us this morning to discuss the various aspects, that contributes towards the conversation this morning. So we were talking about the women and the role that they play in not just processing of these foods, but also when it comes to decision making and also access to resources, financing, which you mentioned, which again we'll come back and talk about. But aside from that, there's also this other aspect, which is like cultural, our culture. We'll talk about policies later on. But let's talk about our culture and how that sort of like influences either availability, accessibility, of some of those foods that we really, really need. And I'm going to begin with you, Elizabeth, and then we'll come back to you, Mary. Okay. Yeah. And how that plays, when we talk about safety and security of the foods that we have.
Yeah, so culture is a major issue because it determines what we put on the table. For example, in Kenya, in a number of communities, men will say they cannot sleep without eating ugali.
Fact, yes.
Yeah, it's a common saying in Kenya.
Ugali hata lala,
yes.
They'll be hungry.
Yes, so that's what we are talking about. That's what we are trying to create awareness. That when we were talking about the food groups, the ugali falls in the cereals group. In that cereals group, there's something else you can eat. Yeah, you can take rice. Yeah, and also we also have the tubers. Yeah.
Okay.
We have the sweet potatoes. I know Kenyans find it strange that they can eat sweet potatoes for dinner, with the vegetable and the protein and the fruit and everything. But we are trying to create awareness, especially to go back to our indigenous foods. We have a very rich culture. Yeah. We have so many indigenous foods which are nutrient dense. Yeah, and most of them are also climate resilient. So they are not very hard to grow. Yeah. So why not go back to our millets and our sorghums? And these ones actually, when we were talking even about accessibility to food, sometimes we have issues because we all want to grow maize. Yet some of our regions are appropriate for millet and the sorghums, because of the issue of the climate change. Yeah, so what we are saying is that we need to diversify. Yeah, we need to think about how can we go back to these foods so that we are not always thinking food is rice. Standard Kenyan meal, either rice, chapati, or ugali. Yeah, we have the roots and tubers. We have the millets, we have the sorghums, and many other foods. Even the cassavas. Yeah. Cassava gives us very good flour. Yeah, and it is a crop that does very well even in the arid and semi-arid regions. Okay. Yeah. So that's what we are talking about. We need to think, how can we diversify our diets? Okay. Now, when we talk about food safety, food safety actually applies along the value chain. Yeah. And we usually say that if it is not safe, it is not food. We have had cases in this country where people have actually died from consuming food, apart from contaminated food that went that has aflatoxin, in the stores and all that. So what we are doing as a department is to sensitize our value chain actors across board, from the producers, from the transporters. How do we transport this food? Sometimes you see when you're walking along the road, you find the sukuma wiki is the kales, they are down there on the floor. And yet as nutrition sensitive, we tell you, for you to get the maximum nutrition from the vegetables, especially the green leafy vegetables, you just stir fry. Yeah, so you can see now the food safety issue there.
Aspect of
So
this,
if it has been on the ground and then you just come and stir fry, what is the end result?
Yeah.
So we are trying to sensitize everyone across board, all the value chain actors, the transporters, the markets, even the market players. Yeah, how are you displaying this food? How are you storing this food in the market? Yeah, so food safety is a key issue that we look at as a department, and at production side, because that I know that's where there are a lot of questions. I want to say that the government has regulatory mechanisms. Like for every pesticide that is supposed to be used in this country, we have the Pest Control Board.
Okay.
They are the ones who recommend. Yeah, they look at every pesticide, every agrochemical that is supposed to be used on our farms.
Yeah.
So they usually have a sticker to show that it is approved. But as we know, sometimes we have maybe chemicals just coming through other means. Yeah, and so that is the role of government to try and regulate.
Yeah, and especially before it gets to the people, because you see, by the time it gets to the farmer, this farmer might not have enough time to look and see, hey, where is the sticker? You know, what does this contain really? It's whatever we get. I mean, case in point of the fertilizer issue that was there. Most farmers, it got to them first. Some of them actually used it and realized, no, this is actually not it, right? Yeah. So then regulating before it gets to that point where the farmer, you know, has their hands on,
That's
right?
right.
Okay, we'll come back then to address more on the policy, because I think there's a very big issue when it comes to policies right in the country. We have the best, but implementation is where we have
before we move out of there, we had talked about the issue of the standard, the food safety standard for our country, and I would say that through the Horticultural Crops Directorate, we have a standard which regulates, you know, the production of our own fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
Because most of the time we are thinking about standard for export market, but we have our local standard to ensure that we are also adhering to the necessary sanitary practices as we produce our food, so that we don't end up putting poison instead of food on our tables.
Yeah, and Mary, do you want to just pick up on that, because we're discussing this, you know, when we were off air, and we said most of the time we have sort of like adopted the westernized lifestyle in a way that eating gouache is not cool. We want bread, we want bacon, we want, you know, the nice things. And yet they're not healthy, you know, for us. So then how do we shift that? Because I think we need to do a lot of work there to educate our people and tell them, listen, this is healthy. And as much as it doesn't look cool, quote unquote, but it's healthier, right? So then how do we start in terms of changing our attitudes towards our foods, our local foods that we produce, and also for the farmers not to focus on exporting the best, and then we're left with substandard, right, which might not be healthy for us.
But, the government has also realized that, and I think some of these food at one point we are calling them orphaned cropped, but we are no longer calling them orphaned. Because a lot of research is going there, a lot of promotion is also going there, so that we can promote the production and also consumption. For example, last year we had a whole conversation and dialoguing around the indigenous foods and coming together and finding out why are we not eating our food, why are we not producing them. And one of the issues that came up with was that when they were called orphaned, people like kind of felt like they were not cool, like you say. Yeah, so the lifestyle of also our people has really moved to this fast food. I think most of the farmers don't have enough time. Some of this food require a little bit time to prepare them. And like when you come and do ugari and you through. So that dialogue brought out that issues and even making sure that people are consuming this. In the country, we have the Kenya recipe book, and this Kenya recipe book has most of the foods in different regions.
Okay.
Every region has their recipes there.
All right.
And it was also focusing on the foods that are grown in that region and how they are prepared, and comes out with a good recipe.
Is it available
for that.
to the public?
Yes, it's online.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we also have the Kenya food composition tables. Sometimes we feel like our indigenous food do not have all the nutrients that we require. But now when you go to that food composition table, you realize the density of this food that we are maybe not eating as a country.
All right.
And I think even as you look out in the food vendors, you can see there is a lot of it coming out. The domas, the gouaches are now coming out, and people are starting to go back to that. But a lot of education is required, especially to make sure that the nutrition values of them come out there, and involving the private sector. The ministry is working with the private sector so that they can also come in. And sometimes the private sector picks it up very fast and makes it available for this. You see, there are some who are now packaging uji ready to drink, using our millet and our sorghums. And that now competes with this other fast food from the Western countries. So if it's made available now for everybody, that would make it even cool for even the young people.
I see that.
And I also think we can do more, especially in the school meals, because children get that or acquire those tastes. So instead of using the Western foods, now we can put in our traditional foods so that they can grow up knowing these are good. And if they're being served in school and they're being supported by parents, because sometimes it's the parent who have an issue with them. So we may go back to our traditional food, which are more nutritious.
Changing the attitude.
Yes,
I mean, I hear that. And then there's also this other side where, and especially those communities who are mostly affected, you know, by drought, or the fact that the food is not accessible. I don't know if you remember there was a time, was it in Nyandarua, where there was a lot of, you know, cabbage and potatoes, and some actually being thrown away, others, you know, fed to the animals. And then there was this other part of the country where there was literally nothing for the people to actually have and to feed on. And most of the time when we have like aid, you know, helping these people, we don't consider the nutritional aspect. We just, what is it that tupeleke nini mahindi, right? And then that's it. So even when we think about helping the communities that are most vulnerable, then how do we change? And this again goes all the way back to our policies and you know, our regulations, that in as much as we're helping, but we're also giving you healthy foods. That is required. But before we talk about that, so then can we, because we've talked about the gaps that are there, especially when we're talking about women and youth, you know, engaging in innovation when it comes to agriculture. So we've talked about resources, number one, financing, you know, accessibility, first of all, to, you know, to these finances and the disparities that, you know, are there. So the big question is, so then how do we change this? How do we address this so that we fight inequalities, we fight these disparities, we fight, you know, cases of, you know, not having the resources and the available finances, so that women can have more, can be more empowered, you know, to be actively producing, you know, the foods that we need.
Yeah, I think it's to start with. It's important that everybody starts interacting with policies and the laws in a way that is effective. Because most of these challenges of policy and the laws are not well understood, and they're never taken into account at the beginning. So even a woman who is starting to get into farming, for instance, I was giving an example, get into a leasehold with someone, this lease is not, there's no maybe even a written lease, and it's an oral conversation. And if this person turns around and says, I want my land back, or I want a share of the crop, no, they change the terms in the middle of it. Or in some instances, we have seen even in what has been published, even in the newspapers, they want sexual favors for this lady to continue using this land, which was a leasehold. But since there was no effective lease at the beginning, so this particular kind of this farmer is likely to be deterred, is likely to stop farming, or is likely to lose the investment in that. So do we know, the question is, do we know, and how do we make sure that our people get to know of the laws that can protect them and how to use them, and the policies that can protect them. Also, we need to change our culture and our laws. The culture that make women not be able to fully access this resource and use the resource and make decision on that resource so that they can be able to access others. And other laws which are very detrimental. Laws like law of succession has provision that if your spouse dies as a woman, you do not fully inherit the land. You can only use it for the remainder of your life. What if you would have wanted to sell that land and buy another better land which you can do more agriculture, for instance, grow more food, or you want to use that land to take a loan to do something? You see, now that kind of law, it's really it's discriminative, because most likely this resource, when the man was alive, this resource was a matrimonial property, which the woman had contributed to the acquisition. But how comes now when the man dies, the resource stop being fully available for the woman? So we need also to look at some of those issues. We need to inform and be able to affirm issues of spousal consent, because even though a couple could be in a marriage that is not legally registered, but it's not like a church or a civil marriage. It's a customary marriage where they have done these dowries and stuff like this. It's still a marriage that is recognized by the law. And so a man should not dispose land without consulting with a woman. So we need to talk about, because that is the law. So issues of spousal consent, issues of just changing our culture, and also encouraging dispute resolution that brings peace and harmony and resources at hand. I'll give you just one small example.
All right, very quickly,
in this area,
need to end the show,
where there was complaint about women are not getting anything, although they take care of the cows. So the decision was made, what if the woman gets maziwa ya jioni, when the man gets maziwa ya asubuhi. Everybody is happy and the cow is well fed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Milk. I'm so sorry to rush you, but we literally have to end the conversation. But I'm just going to give you 1 minute each, because we've talked about the policies and the legislation and all those things. So in like 30 seconds to each of you, as we wind up this conversation. So then, how do we strengthen this? Because we have the affirmative action, but right? We all know all those things. So then how do we strengthen these policies to make sure that we have food that is safe, but we also food we're secure? We're not talking about food even as we celebrate this day. Very quickly. I'll start with you, Mary.
Implementation is usually where the gap is. So as much as possible, everybody pulls where they're supposed to pull so that we can be able to implement these policies. Not leaving everything to government, but everybody looking at where are they supposed to influence so that they can be able to implement these policies.
I see that. All right. And especially when the youth and women are concerned, how do we strengthen those policies to make sure that safety, availability, equality, all those things?
I would say that in the ministry, most of the policies we have been able to incorporate the issues of gender, and in most of our projects and programs, we have targeted interventions to address the specific needs of women and youth. And what we usually do at the beginning of most projects is to do gender and anthropological study. So that way, in that way, you're able to understand the culture, you're able to understand the gender and that intersection, so that as you come up with interventions, then you're coming up with interventions which are very targeted because you have already identified the needs.
I see that. Thank you very much. And I'm so sorry to rush, but we literally have to end because we also have, again, like we promised, a wall-to-wall coverage as far as the impeachment. But for now, allow us to say thank you. Elizabeth Yegon, Head Gender Unit, State Department of Agriculture, Menje Yoweru, Agri-Nutritionalist, State Department of Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Department, and Milkawa Hukuria, Founder and Executive Director, AMCA Africa Justice Initiative. Thank you so much, ladies. I know 1 hour is not enough, but hey, stay tuned to NTV because we'll have the World Food Day Nation Leadership Forum on Thursday, and there will be a panel discussion to still continue with the conversation from 7:30 p.m. and the live coverage of the event on Friday in Kaimosi. So please make sure you stay tuned for that. But for now, allow us to say goodbye. My name is Winnie Lubembe. We cross over to the courts, Jackso, where, of course, and we also understand that the Senate should be sitting as well. So yes, we'll cross over there. But for now, enjoy the rest of your viewing right here on NTV. Goodbye.